Okay, so this is kind of a pretty high level concept that I'm going to try to explain so anyone can use this. My name is Vexian, YouTube strategist, blah, blah, blah. You've heard it, 5 billion long form views. You guys know all that. But what you don't know is that I feel like the game of YouTube is fundamentally changing into a realm of hyper optimization and strategic bets. So previously, a lot of the stuff that I was doing is mostly around ideation, right? Coming up with ideas for creators to get a shit ton of views, like a shit ton. My most viewed video of all time is for Mike Shake with 25 million long form views. It's his #1 video on the channel. That was my idea, title idea, premise of the video, and then thumbnail concept as well. So that was what I would call like a very strategic bet, right? That was like based on some data, right? And we'll talk about the types of data. And it paid off really well, right? And a lot of the time I get hired to make these bets for creators, to interpret their analytics, to interpret what's going on in the market, because I have a better idea of what's going on in the market than they do in most cases, and to make strategic bets around that. That's essentially my entire job. And as I have now finally gone independent, I'm no longer with a company. I have my own boutique consulting firm. One of the things that I'm focusing on specifically is a kind of a new method on working with entrepreneurs and top 0.01% creators, which is what I call the plus expected value playbook, or the plus EV playbook. Essentially what expected value is in the long term, when you make a bet, it'll be profitable. Right. So if I am someone who does betting for a living, a plus expected value bet is over a long-term period of time, I will win that bet. Same thing in the stock market, plus expected value stock market plays or positions are positions that over time would yield profitable results based on what I can expect the value to be. On YouTube, I think it is a lot of the same. And I often cite to my clients, I have a saying that YouTube is predominantly a game of percent and patience. Is you want to stack the percent in your favor and you want to have the patience to make it pay off. Previously, this was generally done with ideas. I thought ideas were like the most important thing in kind of the trifecta. You have ideas, you have packaging, and you have retention. That's like the trifecta. And I had always kind of like been like, okay, ideas are the most important thing. But the more I work with entrepreneurs specifically, and even like top YouTubers to a degree, I no longer think ideas are the most important thing. I think I've always thought like everything was incredibly important, probably equal parts important. But if we just follow like, first principle order, people aren't going to click on the video if the packaging is bad. And if the packaging is bad, it's usually a symptom of an idea being bad. In today's case, I don't necessarily think I don't think that's entirely true. I do still think ideas are probably the most paramount thing and the highest leverage thing you can focus on as a new creator, or as any creator is focusing predominantly on the idea. But based on kind of my new playbook I'm building for my new clients, I don't necessarily think that is totally the case. I think a more thoughtful approach to packaging is probably as, if not more important than actual fundamental ideas nowadays. And the reason for that is I have some data here, and this is what I call the plus expected value playbook, is when interpreting data and making decisions on that, there's kind of a few ways you can do that. You can look at hard data and soft data. So hard data is, if I zoom in here, it's statistics. So I have a custom tool that I built out that I can pull data from the back end of channels. This is a fitness client of mine. I don't think this is going to be like so crazy. Did I show this? I hope so. And I have like this very hard data. This is very like legitimate hard data from the audience watching these content, right? So I know what buckets are performing the best. I know what we can then, place if we're going to make a bet as to what will do the best short-term, long-term. So for my ideas going forward, I can just present to this client, hey, based on the data, we should not do these ideas, or if we do, these ideas are seasonal, right? So that's something I can say with confidence based on the hard data, based on how the audience is reacting to the content we're doing. Previously, we would just be like, okay, this idea in the market is doing really, really, really well. So what we should do is we should do this idea, regardless of the actual backend data to support this idea from the channel and the audience. I know, doesn't sound super complex when I say it, but a lot of guys are not making decisions based on their hard data. They're making decisions based on soft data and what's going on in the market, which can work. You can definitely get some unbelievably good results by just completely playing what's going on in the market right now and innovating, twisting, and developing new formats based on what's working on, the viewers, interest topics, optimizing viral vectors, things like that. These are things that can definitely work. Now, that being said, if you are an entrepreneur or, top 0.1% creator, etc., well, this is a fine strategy. It's not a consistent strategy. That strategy, making emotional-based decisions based on what's going on in the market and trying to chase videos that will raise your view ceiling do not help at all with the view floor for the most part. Generally, if you get a view ceiling raised, your view floor will come up slightly, but generally not to match. What you want to focus on is you want to focus on raising your view floor, which is what the plus expected value playbook is doing. So the way I do this is I look at purely hard data. I can make very, very easy decisions based on the hard data being like these buckets are the best, and you can break that down on your own channel regardless of size. I can break down these groups are the best, which are different than buckets, and we'll maybe talk about that in a later video. And I can make recommendations that are backed by what the audience is most likely to watch historically. And unlike the stock market, historical precedent does help out a lot in this. So this is why I have this very hard data where I can see, hey, these videos make the most money, these videos have the most views, these videos have the highest retention, and therefore we can figure out why these are the cases, and we can then blend those together for a new video, or we can just make bets on we should only make videos in this category, etc. That's hard data based on the back end of the channel, and you can figure that out on your own, or if you want to hire me, you can do that as well. But there's soft data. Soft data is what I would call somewhat emotional data. So the soft data for this particular channel is going to be around thumbnails and titles, where I can spot a trend within the channel and then within the niche, right? So I can validate first within the channel, which makes the most sense. So in this case, this is a thumbnail style that has predominantly done well. So the reason I know it's done well is I have this little score here. This is called an outlier score. I have 2 outlier scores. That's just for me and my interpretation. But generally, you want to look at the first one before the title from 1 of 10, the 1 of 10 extension. What this score is it's this video's relative performance to the 5 video moving average. The 5 videos before this video and the 5 videos after this video will get you your outlier, or the 5 video moving average. So I want to see how these videos are performing relative to the 5 videos before and after. Therefore, I can get a good idea of, okay, this video is an outlier, is outperforming the 5 videos before and after because of some reason, right? Maybe it's the idea, maybe it's the editing, maybe it's that. But on the soft data, which is just purely kind of interpretation based on what I'm seeing, I'm not like, crunching the numbers here with like some AI tool. This is just me going through it with my experience and being like, okay, well, all these videos are outliers and they all have one thing in common, which is this kind of like X-ray thumbnail where I can see his innards, his fat, because he's a fat loss creator. And therefore I can take the hard data from the audience and the audience's response, as well as the soft data from interpretation based on what's going on in terms of the thumbnails, in terms of the titles, and just kind of grouping them together, just eyeballing it, if you will. But there's some sauce involved, there's some experience involved. And I can use the brand new kind of expected value playbook, which I'm sort of developing, or really kind of like the lens in which I'm looking through this, to get outcomes that are like this. These are 3 videos back to back to back. This video is 2 out of 10. We didn't get 3 1 out of 10s in a row, unfortunately, but we got 2 1 out of 10s in a row. And the reason we were able to get those is because we made optimizations that were based off the hard data, where we're only doing hard data ideas from a very strategic standpoint. And then the soft data, where I'm blending the hard data, like actual facts with what the audience watches, with the soft data of my interpretation of what the audience is doing well with. And we could probably get more hard data results from the soft data. That would just take more time, and we don't really have the luxury of that because YouTube is ever evolving. So eventually I will build things in place where I can then just have AI look at the thumbnail and be like, this is the best thumbnail. You can optimize it that way. And then we can get those recommendations. So after figuring out this thumbnail style does really well, and some of these like specific hard data buckets or content verticals are doing well, I can then blend those with like this, for example, is like the yellow highlighted thumbnails, or like this is like the second best performing thumbnail bucket on the channel. And then this is like obviously the 3D one. We have the 3D one here. So I know like definitively, if I do this and I do this, I will have a higher expected value in terms of performance of the video overall, right? I'm just stacking those percentages in my favor. So long-term, these videos will do well. And as such, it's working. So far, it's working. So the first client I'm implementing the expected value strategy with, and it's doing really well. So what I want you to take away from this is you can do 2 things. You can do 3 things, really. Thing number 1 is you can look at what's going on in the market, and you can play an optimized version of the game of YouTube by taking outlier data and implementing it into your channel based on the ideas, titles, and thumbnails. This is what most people do. This is kind of the core premise of outlier theory. It's the core premise of what a lot of coaches in the space are currently doing. This is the core premise of what's working. Even your favorite YouTubers are doing this, right? It's just optimizing human psychology based on outliers, because you can reverse engineer those to get videos that do well relative to your channel or relative to the market by implementing new stuff into the market, right? That's outlier theory. That's the core premise. Fundamentally, if you play outlier theory, you're doing a small bit of expected value play. The second thing you can do is you can then take hard data from your channel, which does take a little bit of nuance to look at, because you don't want any false positives. You don't want any like implicit biases making, impacting decisions. You want to remove yourself from that and just look at the data and tell you like whatever the data says, just make decisions based off that. That's hard data that helps also, stack the plus the expected value in your favor. And then you can blend the hard data and the soft data from the channel and the market. So generally, I'm calling the market the niche. To get a comprehensive overview of what's working from a emotional perspective, which can be packaging. Also, you can get like a statistical perspective from it. And then the hard data of like the actual, like, here's what people are watching, here's how long they're watching, here's how much money this is making. And you can optimize for that on the hard data front with the expected value play. So you're blending all the data from the hard value to make decisions that are data backed from within the channel, plus the thumbnails, which are working on your channel, which is what we'll call soft data, because it's up to your interpretation, as well as what's going on in the niche outside of that. So you can then kind of get some data that will help support your claims, maybe debunk those claims, but you can generally get a good idea of what's going on. And then you can blend that occasionally with outlier content from with other like aspects of your niche, like outside your niche, and also things that are core to your niche to get what I would like to call kind of the plus expected value playbook, where you really are just playing YouTube at an actual fundamental level as a percentage-based game, where we're stacking the percent in our favor in a very logical, mannered way, where previously it was like, yeah, we're stacking the percent in our favor based on like outliers, but now I'm stacking it with the channel data, I'm stacking it with the kind of like perceived the data from like the soft data, from like my interpretation of people clicking on videos, etc., outside of just the idea, which is again like a soft thing, soft piece of data, and we're getting like pretty good results. This is an entrepreneur in the fitness space, but I do imagine when I do bring this exact kind of playbook over to multiple channels within kind of the portfolio I manage right now, we'll have some pretty good success. And so far, 3 videos in a row, implementing this kind of new playbook, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 10. So I'm thinking this could be worthwhile. A lot of people only look at outliers from outlier tools. That's good. That'll work. That'll take you a very long way. If you want to go even further, you then blend the hard data from historical data from the past. And there's also some nuance that you have to like understand, like, was this a seasonal thing? Is there viewer fatigue, right? There's all these like small little things that help out. And then there's the soft data from the thumbnails and titles, which you can interpret. Eventually that'll be coded into hard data. You just have to figure out a way to do that. So that's just like an interfacing thing. And then you can get to the point where you can basically, I'm not going to say guarantee the success of a video, but if outlier theory is going to raise your ceiling because you can have a video that's a 10x, which gives you a brand new audience and multiple new viewers to the channel, this is going to increase your floor probably by 75% to 150%, maybe even 200%, where you can then base all of your decisions off that, and you can slowly raise your view floor. I know, not a crazy concept, but in the landscape of YouTube and YouTube strategy, this is not a lot of things, like people aren't really doing this. People are like, oh, you know, fix this thumbnail, do this. But I find that most people do it at a very surface level. They're not going very deep, blending both hard data and soft data. It's just one or the other. And it's very rarely the hard data because it's very not sexy. Most people don't want to talk about it because it's really boring. Like, I built out a custom tool just for this because I hate going into spreadsheets, and I can get some really good, interesting content out of this. From like what I'm looking here, I'm like, okay, so for example, fitness and woman, it's not doing great in terms of total views or even average views or even median views, but I do know, and I'm not going to show you this, the revenue from this is actually very good. And therefore the back end revenue from conversion of products is also likely very good. So I can then position this like, we should do this once in every while, or we should do this as like kind of a core bedrock to our strategy to make more revenue, but also to increase that view floor with that audience. So yeah, I don't know if this is useful. I don't know if this is interesting. But yeah, blending the hard data and the soft data together to get in a plus expected value strategy is working like ridiculously well for my clients at the moment. To a degree that it's like probably almost illegal to share this information because it might put me at a disadvantage because you guys can start doing the same thing yourselves. But yeah, that is something I just want to talk about. I haven't made a video in a while because I've been basically dying. I have like super bad health issues. GG, cooked. But when I'm allowed, I'm going to be making more content like this. This is pretty surface level. I can actually break down in a much longer video on probably one of my own channels what this will look like going forward. If anyone wants to have any like interest, or if you have like a big enough channel that I can do this on as an experiment, and I can then show this to the audience in a full in-depth way. I think that would be very, very useful. Yeah, this is the expected value kind of playbook I'm running for the rest of 2024 or 2025 into 2026, and then I'll hopefully be able to automate some of the soft data stuff and convert it to a more hard data data set, which then I can just make all my decisions based off that. I can just run an algorithm, sort of speak, where I'm like, okay, here's the idea, here's the thumbnail, what do we think? And the algorithm will be like, oh, this is actually pretty good, this is pretty bad. Now, am I gonna say I solved YouTube? No, because YouTube fundamentally still, there's a bit of chaos involved, there's a bit of randomness that I can't control. But for the aspects I do control, I have a pretty good mastery of it to the point where I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty confident we just do this for every client. It's a guaranteed success to a degree that, you know, wouldn't be possible for, where previously I can be like, yeah, this is likely going to work, but now I can pretty confidently say this is going to work or this is not going to work. So yeah, I thought this was pretty interesting stuff. This also over the course of like a long-term play. Yeah, if you want more info on this, hey, hit me up on Twitter, DM me. If you're a small channel, this is probably going to be less useful for you because you don't have historical data to back this up. If you are a new channel, also probably not going to work. So small channels and new channels, not as applicable. But if you're over 100,000 subscribers, or you want to take like a very autistic approach to this, this is the way to go about doing it. And I am finding some pretty good success from it. So I'm just kind of sharing it for free, as I always do. And yeah, looking forward to seeing what you guys cook up with it yourselves, or if you want to work with me, seeing what we can cook up together.